Hey guys, this is Greg, Underground Graphics. Today we're going to show you a new product we've been working on. This has taken us quite a while to get this completed, but what you're seeing behind me is the template for our stone guard for the Jeeps. This is going to be for the JL, the JK, and the JT as well. We did put this on mine. This is a 392, so there are going to be some pieces that are a little bit off. This piece in particular for the non-392, this will fit a little tighter. Of course, this seam's going to be down a little bit lower. As well, the hood piece, if you're not going to cover up the Rubicon, will be right up to this edge, not rolling over. The stone guard we're going to be using is made by Oracal, so it is going to be a wet install. It is not intended to be a permanent PPF such as your Expel or your 3M. This is something that we've done to try to give you a low-cost option to full PPF or to the magnets or doing the stick-on pieces. Again, we found that we've been going off-roading over the summer and wanted just some protection just for those summer months. This will last up to 3 to 5 years if you do choose to do that. It is optically clear, but again, that design, as many pieces as it is something for the do-it-yourselfer. So again, trying to keep that cost point down to where you're not doing a full, several $1,000 PPF kit. Again, I know it's hard to look at looking at this in red, but we did want to show you as many pieces as it is, what that install is going to look like, how that's going to be on the doors. It's not going to be wrapped. There's no edges are wrapped, so everything is just going to be right up, about a 1/4 inch to that edge. You've got a little bit of give, as you can see here, as I lined up around the trail rated badge, but just a little bit off there. Again, that could be something in manufacturing. We did hit this right on our original test on our demo Rubicon. And again, this will be available with or without the fenders. When we did this kit last year, it did not include the fenders. So as of now, fenders are only going to be for the Rubicon fenders. We're still working on others, but found that this took just as much work to do these fenders as it did to make this entire kit for the side of the Jeep. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get this pulled off, and we're going to do a wet install of this kit to show you what that's like in doing that. It will install similar to PPF. Again, that stone guard that we use is not the same material, so it doesn't have the same stretchability. It's going to be a little bit more rigid, kind of like what you have on this rear fender from the factory. If you noticed, we did not take this off. We wanted this kit to be kind of a OEM fitment, so we're just going to give you that side piece there to run up next to that OEM guard and then run over the back of those fenders. If you have taken this off, obviously we have our own kit. We can adapt to that, as well as any pieces that you need custom. We can look into that as well. But again, this kit really was just designed as your short to intermediate term use. If you guys have any questions, feel free to give me a call. And like I said, we're going to go ahead and get some photos, get this off, and hopefully get this up on the site very, very soon. Again, this has been a long time in the making, and we're sorry for the delay on getting this out. I know we've had several of you ask for this, and yeah, we're almost there.
Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Gian filling in for Greg. We have this time a PPF kit that we have recently, actually earlier today, taken some pictures of. We have an example of it on the website going up pretty soon. Everything's in red, so we're not selling it as red, but it's in red, so that way you can tell where everything is really supposed to go. We do have a printout that has the numbers that we would suggest doing these in. So it is, depending on your skill level, kind of organized, or it is a sequential type of install. But you can do it different types of ways. Right now we have not everything all on one sheet, but this is how you're going to receive it. Right here we have mostly the fenders, the flat panels for the second long sheet, and the longest sheet has the doors. And keep in mind, this is only one side. This isn't the passenger side also of the Jeep. It is just the driver's side. And we don't have upper portion of it. This is literally just the side. So tools that you will need for this would typically be less than what you would for vinyl. You do need to still clean off the vehicle. The paint needs to be, like I like to say, exfoliated. So you need to clay bar it. Generally, I like to use the alcohol water mix, 20% alcohol, 80% water. Clean off the vehicle and then go over it with a clay bar and then repeat the first step. Clean off with alcohol just one more time, just to be sure, to make sure that you don't have anything that's going to end up underneath this, because since this is clear, then it will somewhat show a bit more depending on what might be on your paint than vinyl would. Always want to make sure that you have clean hands no matter what you're doing, whether it be vinyl or a clear film. And as always, you don't want to do this in a hot environment, because this, as opposed to vinyl, is going to be a wet install. It is not a dry install. It will be a nightmare if you try to install this dry, especially in heat. It will tack immediately. Pulling it back up will create different lines inside of it. It will not look good in the long run, so definitely do this wet in any controlled environment. So we have planned to leave this as one piece, because since you will be receiving it this way, you can cut it down if you choose to. Like I said, we do have a paper that has these numbered out, and if you would like to do it that way, if that would be easier for you, you can. I'm going to leave it all in one piece, so that way it's more so on the consumer side instead of how we do things here. So without further ado, we have our soap solution. This is about 6 to 8 drops of Dawn dish soap in a roughly 16-ounce bottle. You don't want it to look like you poured mouthwash inside of a bottle, so it's not going to be extremely blue. It might have a slight blue tint to it, but if it's really noticeably blue, it's more than likely too much soap, which isn't a bad thing. It just will take a little bit longer to dry. And the typical dry time for this is a roughly 48 hours, so you don't want to throw this on and immediately go driving or wheeling or have it in the rain or anything like that. You just want it to sit where it is for those 48 hours. So I guess probably doing it on like a weekend, or if you have some time off, or maybe a holiday that's coming up, something like that. But other than that, that is essentially everything for the kit. Now we'll just head over to the vehicle, and we do have a few things to touch on there, and we'll start throwing this on. All right, so we have the Shop Jeep 392 here, and the little, I guess, adjustments that you can say that we have, or the options that we have for it. We can either have a longer hood, or since the 392 is a little bit of a shorter hood, then there is a different option for, I believe, the Mojave, and not too sure what the other submodel is, but we do have this hood being shorter, and we do have the other hoods that are longer. I believe with this kit, it is going to go a little bit further than it needs to, but it'll still give you the idea of what we're going for. Also, if you have a low fender, we do have an option for down in here so that you can get this channel. This one, I am going to go ahead and put on the fender on the other side of this, even though it is a high fender, or a stock fender if you'd like to call it that. But if you do have a low fender, since typically you won't get anything to come up here, the fender will take the brunt of whatever that might end up flying up. But if it's a low fender, then that will be exposed, so we do have that option for you. Another option that we have is the piece right here. The one that we have is, I believe, based off of our Gladiator, so it doesn't quite meet the same height, and it does have a cutout right here that you will see once we start with the install on that. That is not specifically for this one, and we will contact you, or we will verify with you which one you have, so we send you the right piece. The next option that we have, there is an option to have this cut out if you already have a graphic here, because if you do lay on the PPF, then it will turn this gloss, or it will have a line through it, because it is a two-part piece. There is the front piece of the fender and the rear piece of the fender, and so we do have a cutout option. We also do have a full option that goes up to that vent right there. These badges, we have cutouts for them. They aren't quite precise. There is a little bit of wiggle room in there, and that's just so everything's not bundled up on top of anything else, or for whatever reason, if someone has taken off their Jeep badges here and replace them, and they're just roughly in the same spot but not quite, and we do have a little bit of wiggle room there. Last option we have back here, where the factory PPF is. We still have ours. If you can't see that, that's where my fingernail is hitting. So with the kit that we have, then we do butt up to this factory PPF. If for some reason you or a previous owner, someone you bought it from, anything like that, they had taken this off, we also do offer an option for this piece to go along with the kit. So if you possibly don't like how yours is looking right now, maybe it's yellowed over time, maybe it starts cracking, maybe it's already taken some damage to it, then you are able to pull this off, order the full kit, and have that all matching and looking brand new again. Other than that, those are all the optional pieces that we have, and we will have those up on the website. I believe it's time to install. All right. So, since we're about to start doing the install for this, I'll go through really quick on what I prefer to do. Typically, you want your vehicle to be a bit closer to you, but since our shop is at a good temperature and it's not windy or dirty in here, then we are all fine. So I like to pull up the PPF just a bit, about halfway, and you want to grab your soapy water mix and just lightly spray the backside of that. You want to pull the rest of it. Just kind of lay it in the opposite position on its back. You're going to take your soap and water over to your vehicle. And you don't want to be too light with your spraying. The more water and soap mix that you have, the better it will slide around. You can see that since I used a good amount of soap and water, it is sliding around very easily. Even with the air conditioning vent being directly over me, it's not drying this out really quick. It's still allowing me time to move it in place to where I like it. Once you have it where you'd like for it to be, you are going to use your soap and water mix over the top, and that's so that your squeegee that we do provide, we have a yellow one, a black one, and they're both roughly about this size. And the reason for spraying the top, once you have it positioned in place, you kind of want to move it in place with your hands dry and with the top dry. That's why we laid it over on the back side, or you can also hold it above or hold it off in the air, spray it, and that will also keep that back side dry. But you want to leave that dry to position it, and then spray the top once you have it in position, so that way your squeegee will slide directly over it and you're not shifting it. And on that first initial squeegee, you do want to put a bit of pressure with your hand so that way it still doesn't move out of place. And those fingers you will have to chase out just little by little. The more soap that you use, the longer it will take, or I guess the more effort it will take for those fingers to come out. But that is okay, because like I said, the more soap that you have, the more time that you'll buy yourself. It is about 6 to 8 drops of that Dawn dish soap. I'm just trying to work out some of these fingers here. And if some of those fingers don't quite lay down right away, you can leave them floating for a little bit and work on to either the next piece or work on the rest of that panel. And then once those parts have been floating off of the surface for a little while, you can go back to them and lay them down. So let's see if we can get this to go down. It's not quite ready yet. Those fingers are getting smaller. If I could just get rid of those two, I'd be extremely happy. But we're just going to leave that sitting just for a little bit. And make sure that we don't have any bubbles in the middle, and that if there is any air, that it's on the ends, because since this will be sitting for a little bit and drying out for us to get those to lay down, then you don't want to have bubbles in the middle of it. Those eventually will evaporate, but it is better to have them pushed to the edge, so that way you don't have to worry about, is it going to evaporate or is it going to stay there? Just go ahead and give yourself peace of mind right off the bat. So we will continue with this fender and head on to the hood. We'll do this whole front piece and we'll move on to the back. That way there's nothing that gets mixed up and everything's nice and streamlined. So this one I did a little different. I sprayed it in the air instead of putting it on its back and then spraying it, just to show you that it is roughly the same. And I'm going to try to get that as close as possible to the other piece that I can. And with my hands dry and the backside dry, now that I have that moved to where I want it to be, I'm going to spray the top side of it so my squeegee's not pushing this out of place. You're just going to lock in the top. And once you lock in the top, you start working your way down. Don't be afraid to add pressure once you have it in position. Once again, we have a few fingers up here. Not sure if you guys can see that, but these ones are settling a bit better than the top of the fender, only because there's a little less curve. Still waiting for those to dry out, no biggie. Here we're gonna put this on. You probably didn't see me spray the body, but that's because there's a bit of residual water from the top of the fender on there still. But when in doubt, always spray. And if you don't like where you're positioned, if for whatever reason it is kind of locked in place, I was locked in place, but if it's locked into place and you don't quite like your positioning, you can lift it up while there's still that slip solution under there, the soap and water, and move it to your liking. And this can stretch some, so if you would prefer something to be a little bit closer to something else, then you can lock in one end, kind of get the water out of that, and you need to thoroughly squeegee that if you're going to give a little bit of a pull to something. Now that that is locked in there, I can use my thumb to just somewhat give a slight pull up in this direction and move it closer to the top of the fender. So far, that's the first one to go down without any fingers. I may have lied. A little bit of a lift right there, but it's no problem. This right here, I'm still waiting for that to dry a little bit. And we're down to one finger. That might creep up again here and there, but for the most part, just to show you guys that you can wait a little bit, move on to another panel, and just keep an eye on something that's not laying down. Now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to this part of the fender, and then we can move on to the hood and the side. And for the smaller pieces, you don't really need too much soap and water. Just a quick spray. Of course, if, like I said, you are in doubt, you can spray it as much as you like. I'm going to hold my thumb right here. Just get some of that water out. Just get that to tack. Now you can keep holding your hand there just in case it decides to move, depending how much soap you use. And since gravity is always pulling down, we're just going to get this water to drain out to the bottom. And like I've said, we've got a couple fingers there. We're just going to let those sit. We're going to wait. Move on to the next piece. See if we can get them to lay down kind of like, there we go. And it looks like I'm fighting with the other side of the fender there. But I won this round. Now we can move on to the next panel. Okay, so since this piece is somewhat of an awkward shape, I am going to leave it on the paper to prep it. So what I'm going to do is pull, I could either pull from the bottom end or the top end of it. I just decided to pull from the bottom. And I'm just going to kind of hinge this over. Again, you want to make sure that you have clean hands because I am touching this a lot. Alright, now you can spray one side of it. With the PPF material, you can spray on the backing that it has. I'm going to lay this back over. It doesn't have to go right back where it was, just in a decent spot so that way things don't fall on top of it. Any contaminants, or maybe you just cut your hair. You don't want your hair falling off inside of your PPF. I'm going to pull the top portion of it. It is okay if you get the other pieces wet. They are still stuck down on the backing. A quick spray there. I'm just going to somewhat lift this up. Since it is wet, it's not going to stick to itself. Transfer this over to the vehicle. Now this is the fender that does not have the cutout for our vent decal. But keep in mind that we do have that option. Actually, it is. So, luckily you get to see that. Of course, this is matte, so if we were, say you ordered a piece and you think you might want that to go over, it would not look too great because it will gloss over. And it is not cut to tuck in here like how the graphic is. So we definitely recommend double checking if you do want to get our fender vent graphic and then have a cutout for this with the PPF. That is definitely doable. And don't forget, your hands are great tools if you want to have this just position in place with your hands off the bat. That's fine. Just kind of wiggle this into place. Doesn't look like we'll have any fingers on this one. Spray the top of it. And we're just going to start in the middle. I'm going to put pressure right here to make sure it doesn't move about. We're just going to push those bubbles out. There's not a specific way really to squeegee this. It's what works for you and what is most comfortable for you to get the water out and any air bubbles that might be inside of there. There are different ways that you can hold the squeegee. If you've noticed, there's a few times where I'm using the back side of the squeegee just to kind of flick the water out. But if you need to push out a lot of water, you do want to do, I guess you could call this type of like a plow type of method, where you put even amount of pressure on all parts of the squeegee and you just work out that moisture. Alright, no bubbles there, no fingers. We're all set for the next part. I'm going to continue on this panel where we are. I'm going to drop down inside of that fender. Since we do have the factory fenders, I'm going to do the hood and this panel right here. So that way we knock out this whole front portion, we can move on to the back. I did want to throw this on over the letters because since I kind of gave an example of how it will gloss over what you already have on there if it's not already gloss, might not be something that you care for. But these Rubicon letters are matte, and with this over it, it does give it a gloss look. So keep in mind that if you do want the PPF on the hood, then if you do have letters that are on there already, you can order those from us and replace those letters. If you prefer to take them off, you can go over them. Really, it's up to you. Also, if you'd like to change the wording on it or put a different name there, we do have options. This can be custom. But if you do want the factory Rubicon or Mojave lettering on the side and you are okay with the PPF going over it, just keep in mind that it will be gloss. Alright, so we've gone ahead and laid on everything on here, but I did forget about what I had promised on the fender here. I am going to lay this piece in. Again, this isn't necessary unless you have the lower fenders. So I'm just going to lay that in there. And it is a bit awkward. If you do have one of our vinyl squeegees, you can use that. If you don't, and you just have this one, that is also fine. You do want to lock in that top. The bottom of it is still floating a little bit, so you might have to give that a little bit of a wait time before you are able to get that down, because the squeegee is a little big to get down in there, but it will make it. This is the same case for the rear fender. It does have a small sliver back there that you do have to kind of work in and wait and let that dry up a bit before you're able to lay that down. But essentially, that is what you will be going for. I know it is difficult to see it, even for being an installer. Throwing this on, it is blending in very well to the paint. Of course, if you do have any questions for us, you can contact us through email, phone. We love talking Jeep, love talking Bronco. If there's anything that you would want a different type of way, you can also contact us about that. And if any more detail is needed for installation, then we are happy to help. So, until next time, this is the install for today. Thank you.